Have you ever felt forgotten by life, as if everyone else was moving forward while you stayed stuck in the same silent corner? Doors didn't open, prayers felt unanswered. You watched others rise, while your own feet felt tied to invisible chains. But what if I told you that this delay was not your denial, but divine preparation? That in the very silence you resented, God was preparing a favor so fierce, so transformative, that when it's released, it will not just change your path, it will rewrite the very story of your life. Stay with me, because what's about to be revealed may be the confirmation your soul has been crying for. There are moments in your life when everything feels still, almost painfully still. As if the heavens have forgotten your name, as if your prayers have evaporated into the silence. You look around and see others racing ahead, doors swinging open for them, while your path feels blocked by invisible walls. And in that quiet space, a thought tries to whisper, maybe this is it. Maybe nothing will ever change. But what if I told you that your stillness is not stagnation, but sacred preparation? What if the delay was never denial, but divine positioning? What if the favor of God is not a gentle drizzle, but a downpour, waiting for the perfect moment to drench your life with purpose? God does not move according to the frantic pace of man. He is not hurried by our clocks or calendars. He moves with wisdom, with precision, and, above all, with intention. And when His favor is released, it is not mild, it is not subtle, it causes everything to shift. Scripture reminds us that His favor surrounds us like a shield, but a shield is not only for protection, it is a sign of placement. God places His favor upon those He has chosen to elevate, often in seasons where it looks like elevation is the last thing possible. Think of David, a shepherd boy, overlooked, forgotten, even by his own father. Yet when the favor of God rested upon him, it pulled him out of the field and into a destiny that shifted a kingdom. Think of Esther, an orphan, a foreigner, chosen to be queen not by beauty alone, but by divine favor that placed her in a palace for a purpose she could not yet see. And then think of yourself. What if the season you are in right now is not evidence of God's absence, but proof of His hidden activity? What if the silence is sacred and the stillness is pregnant with change? For when God releases His favor, it does not simply rearrange circumstances, it rearranges identities. The same person who once begged for an opportunity becomes the one opening doors for others. The same soul who felt crushed by rejection becomes the cornerstone of restoration. God's favor is disruptive. It does not politely knock. It opens what man said was shut. It brings acceleration where there was stagnation. It lifts people out of obscurity and places them into visibility, not for pride, but for purpose. When that favor is released over your life, people will not understand it. They will try to trace your success back to your efforts, your network, your talents, but they will miss the point. This shift won't come because of who you know. It will come because God knows you. Have you noticed how things have been uncomfortable lately? Have you felt like everything familiar is being shaken? Perhaps that's not a punishment, it's preparation. The ground is being broken because something new is about to grow. Heaven has marked your name for movement. What seems like pressure is often the very sign that something is about to shift. And when that shift begins, it will not just be about you. The favor God releases over your life is never for isolation, it's for impact. Joseph's favor wasn't only for his escape, it was for a nation's survival. Your favor will ripple. It will bless others. It will draw those in need of hope closer to the heart of God, because they will see His hand in your story. So I ask you now, will you stay faithful in the stillness? Will you trust the process when no one claps for you? When no door seems to open? When the wait feels too long? Because just beyond the delay is a release that will make sense of every tear, every unanswered question, every sleepless night. Let the heavens bear witness. The favor of God is not coming, it has already begun to gather. And once it's released, it will not be small. It will shift everything. Your location, your reputation, your connections, your influence, your peace, your purpose. You will not even recognize your life a year from now. Not because you forced a change, but because God's favor demanded it. There is a stillness that God permits before He pours out His favor, a kind of sacred silence that tests the heart, stretches the soul, and sharpens the spirit. To the natural eye, it may appear as abandonment. To the impatient heart, it may feel like punishment. But in the spiritual realm, this silence is God's gentle method of refinement. For He is not a careless giver, nor is His favor handed out lightly. He prepares the soul to receive what the eyes have not yet seen. Think of the night before dawn. It is always the darkest. And so too in life, the moments right before God shifts your story often feel heavy, lonely, and uncertain. In this sacred hush, you pray and hear nothing. You obey and see no reward. You cry out, but heaven feels mute. But this is not divine neglect. It is divine incubation. God is forming within you the character, humility, and capacity necessary to carry what He's about to release over your life. In Scripture, we see this divine pattern repeated again and again. Before David wore a crown, he spent years running through wildernesses, hiding in caves, misunderstood and betrayed. He had the anointing, but not yet the throne. His season of silence was not God's rejection, it was God's protection and preparation. Before Joseph became a ruler in Egypt, he was forgotten in prison, falsely accused, and seemingly invisible to the very people he helped. Yet God was watching. And when His favor was finally released, the shift was instant and undeniable. We must learn to honor the silence, for it is there that our roots grow deep. It is there that pride is stripped, ego is crushed, and faith is refined into something unshakable. God does not wish to give you favor only to watch it destroy you. He waits until your heart can hold what your destiny demands. And sometimes, the waiting room is longer than expected, because what's being formed in you is not ordinary, it is sacred. The enemy often whispers in the silence. He says, "See, God forgot you. You are wasting your time. Others are ahead. You missed it." But the enemy only speaks lies because he knows the truth. He knows that God is working behind the veil, lining up divine encounters, preparing hearts, shifting pieces, and orchestrating details that your eyes cannot yet see. And when that favor finally arrives, it comes not as a gentle breeze, but as a divine wind that shifts everything. Hold on in the silence. What you think is stillness is actually divine alignment. The quietness is not lifelessness, it is purpose in disguise. You are not being punished, you are being positioned. And when God moves, it will be clear that the silence was not wasted. It was the very foundation upon which the miracle stood. So if you find yourself in the in-between, do not despair. This is often the final stretch before breakthrough. The silence means something is coming. And when that favor is finally released, you will look back and realize that the wait was not only worth it, it was necessary. For without it, you would have never learned how to carry the weight of the favor God is preparing to release over your life. There is something about divine favor that defies logic. It doesn't follow the rules of merit. It doesn't bow to human approval. It doesn't require validation from peers or permission from critics. When God releases His favor over someone's life, the change is so radical, so sudden, that people around you begin to whisper, question, and sometimes even resent what they cannot understand. You must prepare yourself for this. The shift that's coming will not be gradual. It will be disruptive. It will reposition you in places you didn't apply for. It will give you opportunities your resume can't explain. It will surround you with blessings you didn't negotiate for. And those who knew you in your wilderness, who walked past you when you were invisible, will be the same ones bewildered when they see what God has placed in your hands. But here is the truth. Favor is not fair. It's divine. It is not something you earn. It's something God entrusts. That's why those who don't understand your story will always misjudge your shift. They'll say you must have manipulated it. They'll say you got lucky. They'll say you didn't deserve it. And to be honest, they're right. Because none of us truly deserve what God gives. That's what makes it favor and not a reward. Look again at the scriptures. When God elevated Esther, many in the palace likely questioned her presence. She was not of royal blood. She had no powerful lineage, and yet she was chosen. Why? Because of divine favor. When Jesus chose fishermen to be his closest followers, the religious elite were confused. Why not scholars or temple leaders? Why them? Because favor does not ask for credentials. It flows from the heart of God to those he chooses. The shift that favor brings will cause people to revise the way they see you. Some will celebrate, many will question, and a few will resent. That is part of the price. You must understand that your new elevation will not only challenge people's perception of you, but it will also threaten the comfort of their own complacency. They will wonder why God moves so powerfully in your life while they still wait. But your shift is not about comparison. It's about calling. When God begins to move in your life, your responsibility is not to justify his favor. It's to steward it well. You don't owe explanations to those who weren't there in the silence. You don't need to apologize for the doors God opened. You simply need to walk through them with humility and obedience. When favor lifts you, remain anchored in truth. You didn't cause this shift, God did. And if he caused it, no man can cancel it. Let the confusion of others serve as confirmation for you. If it were predictable, it wouldn't be divine. But because it is confusing, it is clear that it comes from a higher hand. So be ready. When your life begins to shift, the opinions around you will too. But you were never called to please crowds. You were called to follow God. And if the shift is divine, let it confuse them. Let it awaken awe. Let it point back to the one who lifts up those the world overlooked. Let it testify that God, not man, writes your story. In a world ruled by systems, social, economic, religious, and cultural, it's easy to believe that your progress depends on being accepted by these structures. The world trains you to wait for permission, to seek approval, to fit in, to climb ladders someone else built. But when the favor of God rests upon your life, those man-made systems lose their power. Because favor doesn't come from earth, it comes from the heavens. It comes from the heavens, from the heaven, and when it finds you, it overrides everything built to delay you. The systems of man often operate on limitation and hierarchy. They decide who qualifies, who gets in, who stays out, but God does not consult committees when he wants to elevate someone. He doesn't need the agreement of systems that were never meant to carry his glory. He moves directly, bypassing the expected, confounding the wise, and lifting up those who've been overlooked, rejected, or underestimated. Look at Joseph again. He had no political connections, no official pathway. In fact, he was in prison, forgotten by man, yet remembered by God. And when favor found him, it broke every man-made rule. In a single day, he went from prisoner to prime minister, not because the system chose him, but because God's hand moved the pieces. What man had locked, God unsealed. What men withheld, God released. This is the pattern of divine favor. It disrupts. It shakes the order of the world. It confuses those who cling to qualifications and bloodlines and status. And it empowers those who know they are nothing apart from grace. That's why you must not be discouraged when you face closed doors, denials, or delays. They do not have the final word. The same system that tried to hold you back can be used by God to lift you higher, not because of who's in the room, but because of who's in control. God's favor doesn't need a stage to begin working. It starts in the quiet places, in the heart that remains faithful when no one is watching. When favor finds such a heart, it moves with unstoppable force. It opens doors no man can shut. It silences voices that once slandered you. It aligns people who once ignored you to now bless you without even knowing why. You see, man-made systems reward performance, but divine favor responds to obedience. Man looks at resume, appearance, alliances. God looks at the soul. And when he finds a soul surrendered, humble, and faithful, he places favor like a crown on that person's life. Not as a trophy, but as a tool. Not to boast, but to build. Not for fame, but for divine function. So do not fear the systems that have passed you by. Do not shrink when institutions reject you. You were never called to beg for a seat at their table. You were destined to carry a blessing they cannot contain. And when that favor finds you, nothing, no rule, no protocol, no person can stop what God has set in motion. Let this give you strength. You are not behind. You are not beneath. You are not forgotten. You are right where God can reach you. And when His favor is released, it will rewrite every limitation written over your life by man. Many long for breakthrough. They cry out for deliverance from hardship, for a new job, a healed body, restored relationships, financial stability. And God hears those prayers. He cares deeply. But what we often overlook is this. God's favor doesn't come just to help you survive your trials. It comes to activate your divine assignment. The shift in your life is not only about lifting the burden, it's about lifting your eyes to a greater purpose. We must understand the nature of divine favor. It does not exist solely for comfort. It exists for calling. When God releases favor, He is not only rescuing you, He is positioning you to become a vessel through which heaven touches earth. Your elevation is not meant to be an escape. It is meant to be an entrance into a space where you serve His kingdom at a higher level. Look again at the stories of Scripture. When Esther was chosen as queen, it wasn't just so she could enjoy luxury. It was to stand in the gap for her people. When Moses was pulled from the river and raised in a palace, it wasn't for privilege. It was preparation to lead an exodus. When God lifts you, it is because your story will be the answer to someone else's cry. You are part of a divine pattern. Rescued to become a light. Many resist this responsibility because it feels heavy. But understand this, favor doesn't add weight. It gives you the strength to carry what once crushed you. It transforms your pain into purpose, your wounds into wisdom, your survival into a testimony. And suddenly, the breakthrough you once prayed for becomes the very stage on which God performs His glory through your life. That's why you cannot afford to misuse your shift. It's not the time to prove yourself to people. It's not the time to boast in your blessings. It's the time to ask God, what would you have me do with this favor? The shift in your life is a summons, a call to rise, not only in status, but in service, not only in influence, but in obedience, not only in comfort, but in compassion. You are not saved just to be safe. You are saved to serve. And when God favors you, He expects you to walk boldly, speak truth, uplift the broken, and reflect His light in dark places. Your story becomes someone's lifeline. Your healing becomes someone's hope. Your platform becomes a pulpit, whether big or small. And this is why your shift is inevitable. Because God's kingdom has need of you. Not a perfect you, not a flawless you, but a faithful you. Someone who knows what it's like to walk through the fire and not be burned. Someone who knows how to kneel in silence before they ever stand in victory. Someone whose favor was born not from fame, but from surrender. The favor you're about to walk in is not random. It is kingdom ordained. Your life is being moved not just for your sake, but for the sake of those waiting on the other side of your obedience. When God's favor begins to flow into your life, the most radical shift often doesn't begin around you. It begins within you. Your outer world might start to change, yes, but the deeper transformation occurs in your self-perception. Favor doesn't just elevate circumstances. It redefines identity. It rewrites the script you've been living by. It changes the name you've been answering to. For too long, many have lived under labels that life or people have imposed on them. Unworthy, forgotten, average, too late, too broken. You may have quietly accepted these labels not because they were true, but because they were repeated. The enemy is clever in this. He gets you to agree with limitation, so you won't dare reach for transformation. But when God's favor touches your life, it does something divine. It starts to peel off those false labels and speak your true name. Remember when Gideon was hiding, afraid, uncertain, calling himself the least in his family? The angel of the Lord appeared and greeted him not as a coward, but as a mighty warrior. Nothing had changed in Gideon's outer world, but favor had found him, and with it came the voice of heaven calling him into who he truly was. The favor redefined him, not based on his past, but on God's purpose for his future. This is what happens when favor shows up. You begin to see yourself not through the lens of trauma, rejection, or fear, but through the lens of divine assignment. You realize you're not merely surviving, you're chosen. You're not an afterthought. You're anointed. You're not what they called you, you are who God calls you. And this shift in identity is necessary, because you cannot carry new blessings with an old mindset. If you continue to see yourself through the lens of your wounds, you will sabotage the very favor sent to heal you. God's favor must first change the way you think about yourself before it can change the way others see you. Many people cry out for a breakthrough, but resist the identity that breakthrough requires. They want promotion, but still call themselves unworthy. They want influence, but still carry shame. But favor will not rest on a fractured self-esteem. That's why God, in His mercy, begins to confront your inner dialogue. He doesn't just hand you favor, He teaches you how to wear it. When you begin to walk in divine favor, people around you might not recognize you. But more importantly, you won't recognize the version of yourself that once settled, once feared, once hesitated. Favor causes boldness to rise. It awakens authority in your voice. It restores dignity to your posture. It turns insecurity into inner peace. Not because you became perfect, but because you finally believed what heaven has always said about you. This is why the enemy fights your identity so fiercely, because he knows if you ever truly saw yourself as God does, you'd be unstoppable. That's why God is shifting you from the inside out, because the favor coming upon your life requires a new perspective, one that doesn't shrink in shame but stands in truth. You are not who the world says you are. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are not defined by the chapters you survived. You are favored, and when that becomes your identity, everything else begins to follow. God never blesses in isolation. When He releases favor over your life, it is never just for your comfort. It is for the awakening of others. You were not chosen to rise so you could stand alone on a high place. You were chosen to lift others who still believe they're meant to stay low. Divine favor carries with it divine responsibility. To be a light, to be a hand, to be a voice of hope. Think of Joseph again. His favor placed him in Pharaoh's court, but the favor wasn't for personal gain, it was for national preservation. His promotion became a provision for others. What had been a private struggle became a public salvation. That is the essence of favor. It flows through you, not just to you. Many pray for elevation without realizing the weight it carries. True favor places you in rooms where your decisions impact lives. It turns your story into a map for others. It transforms your pain into prophecy, something that speaks life into someone else's wilderness. God doesn't favor you so that others can envy you. He favors you so that others can be healed through you. But here's what makes it holy. This uplifting doesn't begin with grand platforms or stage lights. It starts in small acts of obedience, in comforting someone who feels invisible, in encouraging someone who has nothing left, in telling your story even when it still aches a little. Your life becomes the mirror in which others begin to see God's reflection in their own chaos. Favor makes you a magnet. People who are broken will sense healing in your voice. People who are confused will feel clarity just by watching how you carry yourself in storms. This is the sacred power of divine favor. It allows others to glimpse what God can do with someone who simply said yes. And that glimpse stirs faith in them too. God is shifting your life, not just to bless you, but to commission you. He's calling you to rise so you can reach down, to shine so you can guide others, to be trusted with favor so others can trust Him through you. Your life becomes a living sermon, your testimony becomes a lifeboat, your obedience becomes a bridge. And let us not miss this truth. Uplifting others doesn't drain your favor, it multiplies it. The more you give, the more God pours in. The more you serve, the more He strengthens. The more you lift, the more He raises you higher, not for your glory, but for His. So don't shrink when He begins to elevate you. Don't hide when He places you in rooms you feel unworthy of. You were never meant to rise alone. You were meant to be a lighthouse, a soul that silently points others toward the shore they've been searching for in the dark. Because when God favors you, He doesn't just shift your life. He shifts the lives around you through the light you carry. There is a quiet danger that creeps in when God begins to elevate us. When favor starts to flow, when doors swing wide, when influence grows and applause begins to echo, it becomes easy to believe that we earned it, that somehow we did something to deserve the blessing. But the truth is, divine favor is not a reward for our goodness. It is a trust, a holy responsibility placed into the hands of the willing, not the perfect. The enemy loves to twist favor into pride. He whispers that you are now above others, that your gifts make you superior, that your elevation validates your worth more than others. But the moment favor becomes about self-glory, it begins to fracture under the weight of ego. Favor can lift, yes, but pride can sink. The very favor that raises you can disappear the moment humility is lost. Scripture is clear. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. That means favor doesn't come to the one who shouts the loudest or displays the most strength. It comes to the one who bows the lowest, who remembers the silence that came before the blessing. The one who doesn't forget the cave just because they're now in the palace. Think of Mary, the mother of Jesus. The angel called her highly favored, and yet her posture was never boastful. It was one of surrender. Let it be done unto me according to your word. She understood that favor wasn't a badge. It was a burden she carried for the sake of a divine purpose. Favor will ask you to carry what others won't see. It will lead you through hidden obedience, not just public recognition. You must remain grounded. Let your heart remember the nights you cried out to God in secret. Let your soul stay sensitive to the very voice that guided you in obscurity. Favor should not inflate the heart, it should soften it. The higher you go, the more humility is needed. For every spotlight that shines on you, there must be a shadow of reverence for the one who placed you there. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. It is recognizing that everything good in your life is a reflection of God's grace, not your own merit. It is leading with compassion, not competition. It is choosing to wash feet, even when you're seated at the head of the table. It is remembering that favor does not belong to you, it flows through you. When favor arrives, humility must increase, because favor magnifies whatever is already in the heart. If pride is there, favor will inflate it, but if humility is present, favor will beautify it. Humility is not weakness, it is strength under submission. It is the soul's way of saying, all of this is yours, God. Use me as you will. So if God is about to shift your life, and He is, then let your foundation be humility. Let your heart be light enough to carry what heaven is about to release. Because this shift is not the end of your journey, it is the beginning of your assignment. And only a humble heart can carry favor well without falling under its weight. Let this be your quiet prayer. Lord, may I never be too high to kneel, never too blessed to obey, never too favored to forget who brought me here. You may not feel it, but heaven has already moved. The silence you endured, the battles you didn't talk about, the obedience you gave in the shadows, God saw it all. And now, the favor He is releasing over your life is about to shift everything. Not just your circumstances, but your vision, your posture, your identity, your influence. It will confuse those around you. It will break through systems that tried to hold you back. It will invite a new level of responsibility and impact. And through it all, you must remember, this favor is not for display. It is for destiny. You were chosen not because you were the loudest, but because you were faithful when it was hardest. God is not elevating you just to make your life easier. He is lifting you so others can find hope through your story. He is blessing you so that you become a blessing. He is placing His favor upon you not as a reward, but as a calling. So walk boldly, but tread humbly. Speak with authority, but carry compassion. Move forward knowing this, the shift is not coming, it has already begun. Heaven has declared your name, and no force on earth can stop what God has decided. This is not the end, it is your divine beginning.